This is Karen with NewClevelandRadio.net, and it is time for Just for the Spell of It. And I have Gary Moss with us, and it is a new year, finally, 2021. And I think we all need to be looking at it with anticipation of good changes. So,
I hope so.
well, we don't want to look at it negatively because that won't get us anywhere. So,
No, it won't. And there's a lot of things that happen at the beginning of the year. And those of you listening out there may have already started a new regiment. The most popular ones, obviously, are weight loss, going to the gym and exercising more, and standing in line to get tickets for the new Tiny Tim extravaganza.
oh, yeah, I haven't heard about that yet. Hopefully, you'll give us some insight.
Well, everybody is out there early planting tulips to sing his rendition of Tiptoe Through the Tulips.
Okay.
And I'm going to be one of those.
All right.
I'm going to be there. And, all of this takes planning. But you know what, Karen? At the beginning of the year, a lot of people give in to their wish list without giving it a whole lot of thought, because if they thought about it, they really weren't up to making the changes that needed to go along with it. So Weight Watchers and Noom and a lot of these other programs that are out there, which are very good for weight loss, have hundreds and thousands of people that sign up right now at the beginning of the year. And within a week or two, they're no longer participating. And that doesn't work, obviously. And so I encourage people to study Scrabble and to do things like my online class, Scrabble 101, but don't enroll if you're not going to be doing it.
Absolutely.
My program and these other offerings that are out there are very good things. They can really help you change the things that will make you a more complete, better person. And in terms of Scrabble 101, someone who studies that program honestly will be able to go to any club anywhere and be a confident opponent to the people that play at the higher levels.
Absolutely.
But we've said this before. There is no silver bullet. There's nothing that will guarantee you that you will complete the program except you. And you have all that power. So before you go off and make resolutions and break them, whatever they be, every time you do that, you're feeding into the part of you that thinks, I can't do that. And you sort of become a loser by starting out and then losing. And you build on that negativity by doing that sort of thing. So you'd be much better off not starting any one of these programs, especially if it's sort of reactive to this being the beginning of January.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You brought up two diet programs, and I have to share something that happened to me this past week. I was told a month ago that for health reasons, um, I should get on a better eating regimen. When I asked the doctor, well, what does that mean? He said, well, you know, just eat better. And I started looking around and trying to figure out what I could do. And I called him back and I said, "Come on, you're my doctor. I pay you to tell me what to do." And so he suggested that I check out Noom. And I did.
Okay.
And I joined it. And I also took myself off their list. Not that it's not a good program. It is. But like you said, you need to be ready for the changes that any of these programs are going to do for you. And even though I'm ready, I wasn't ready for the way they wanted me to do things. And so I decided to take a step back because I did not want to be a loser. I did not want to be, putting all my energy into something that I personally at this point could not follow. And I think that goes with whether people join your 101 class or eventually come to a club. Okay. If you want to be there, you need to be there and put the time and energy into it.
Mhm.
And you got to clear your mind. And my
Yeah,
mind wasn't clear. And so now's not the time for me to do that.
yeah. Uh, I can share a sad story in terms of money. Um, I'm not a very wealthy person, and I can't afford to lose a couple $100, but I stepped off the edge of a cliff because of a premise related to my diabetes. I find I've been diabetic for 20 years. I've been on pills, I've been on insulin, I've been on all sorts of different regimens that were supposed to help me with my diabetes. And I know that I'm my biggest enemy because I sneak in a dessert and I sneak in some candy, and all of that is like eating poison. And I know it. But over the years, I've eaten those kinds of things and I have cravings. And, anyways, I go to the internet or wherever and I hear about this tremendous program. And the program uh, advertises, first of all, it tells you that you don't need any special medication, that you don't necessarily need the insulin,
Right.
and that if they can change your regimen of eating, and they say they can, that without any additives, you will be diabetes free. Well, that appeals to everyone who is diabetic.
Right.
And they even offer you a free dinner to come and hear their pitch. So I decided to go to the dinner and hear what they had to say and make up my mind. I didn't go to the dinner uh, thinking that I'm going to go in and I'm going to sign up. And I had no idea what this program cost. So I went to the dinner, and it really wasn't an unusual dinner. The foods on the plate were chicken and a vegetable, and it was very satisfying. And the presenter was like from Broadway. They were a star, and they did a great presentation. And they told me all these things that I really already knew. And they told me how they were going to control this program for me and that I was going to have frequent meetings with them. And I know from experience that if you have a great leader to your program, someone who's a mentor to you, you can accomplish most anything.
Absolutely.
And as long as you are committed to the program, and I thought about it for a while, sitting there after dinner. Can I commit to this? And I thought about what I had just eaten. And I said, it's about time. I'm in my mid to late 70s. And here I sit still trying to solve a problem that has been around since my 40s. So I'm going to do this, and I'm going to hold them to their promise to meet with me. Well, then it came time to talk about the money, and it wasn't $100. It wasn't 300. It wasn't 500. It was $5,000.
Wow.
Well, I figured at that point, if I'm going to put that kind of an investment into achieving this, I'm going to follow through on it. So there I was. Before I left, I signed the contract and I gave them a check, and it wiped out everything I had in the bank.
Wow.
And my starting time was the next day. I was to go to their uh, offices. Well, I went to their offices and they gave me some supplements. One of the supplements I was to mix in water and drink in the morning, and it took away my hunger, and it was going well. And I followed it, their regiment, religiously. And I gave up desserts and I gave up the sweets, and I stayed on their regiment. And I was going into their office as often as 2, 3 times a week. And so I was getting all of this encouragement. And they were having me step on scales and watching the needle go down. And everything was really great. This went on for about 3 months. And I was starting to get a little bit edgy. I was missing out on those desserts and on the sweets that I was no longer having. And a bump in the road came up. And this happens to all of us. It might not happen to you like it happened to me, but I can guarantee something's going to come up that's going to make a change.
Right.
Well, for me, not because of this diet, but something else in my body shifted, and I developed a ventral hernia. Well, that had to be looked after. And I checked with a surgeon, and he said, it's not a big problem, but it has to be addressed, and we need to do it now. Well, I was still doing this diet at the time. So now I had the surgery about a month after I knew that I needed it. And now I'm about 4 months into this diet program. And things changed after the surgery. Um, I can't tell you exactly what, but I felt differently. I was repaired physically. Um, and everything that I had been eating tasted like straw.
Wow.
There wasn't anything in the diet that was appealing to me. And it was becoming really difficult. And I couldn't, well, during the period right after the surgery, I didn't go to my mentor 2, 3 times a week.
Right.
And I had to sit around for a month to recover. So that bump in the road knocked me off balance, and I stopped following the regimen. Now, I'm sure if I hadn't developed this hernia problem, there would have been some other issue. And I gave myself all the self talk about the commitment that we just talked about for any of these programs. And obviously, my commitment wasn't strong enough. And I needed to pamper myself. I really needed a treat. So I whined to myself, and I took a single piece of candy, and one piece leads to the next, which leads to the next. And I'd been down that road so many times in all the years because I'd been on a diet of one kind or another since I was in my 40s. Once that the shift happened in my metabolism, up until 40, I was playing racquetball 3 to 5 times a week. And so I was doing that kind of exercise. I don't think I've done that kind of exercise ever since. And, these, well, just get out there, take a walk every day. Well, if you're not power walking for some lengthy distance, you're not really doing much benefit for your body in terms of exercise. But I wasn't even doing that. So that was a very expensive lesson for me to learn. And, the economics of it sort of isn't really the important part. I was, I tried to shift the appearance of the whole thing. I told myself that it was, the good part that came out. I relearned the lesson. But I think most people out there struggled with one thing or another. I know people that take my class and then struggle with maintaining the regiment of learning words. Um, but there's a whole set of people out there who might experience something that I experienced when I first started to study Scrabble words. There wasn't a class back then in 1986 that taught you how to play Scrabble. Um, Even if you went around and talked to some of the better players, you could talk to 3 players and get 3 different opinions of what you needed to do first. What I did when I created Scrabble 101, I made a list of all of the pieces. And then, being a teacher, I looked at what is the best way or a good way to relate this piece of the puzzle to people who might want to become better at it. And I designed exercises to lead people through steps. And so that's what I did. And what happened to me was I found that I loved these words. The curiosity of ennui and bashlik and some of these really weird words. And I was learning them and I was finding them on my rack and I was sold. And I know people who have taken my class who have found those same kind of qualities in themselves become superstars.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I have a couple people who started with very little to nothing compared to what I have and are now on the national stage. And I could never achieve their level because they have other things in terms of their style of learning, the way their brain works. I've taught mnemonics to hundreds of people. And this one friend, David Pearl, has mastered it. It comes naturally to him. He had never heard of it before I introduced it to him, but he took it and ran with it. And he knows thousands of words by using mnemonics. And I'm really proud to have these people as part of my student body. And I know it can happen to anyone who applies themselves in this particular way.
Absolutely. Well, one of the things that I've seen, and you demonstrated so well this past month or so, um, and that is we've been on a roll with your podcast and with your blogging, and um, you hit a road, you know, a roadblock, okay, and we all hit
I
them,
did.
and you know, sadly, we don't give ourselves enough um, acceptance when that happens. We sort of get down on ourselves that, you know, I shouldn't I shouldn't be blocked right now. I should be doing what I was doing, especially now with the pandemic, I've got plenty of time. But every once in a while it's okay when you hit that roadblock to take the time to reevaluate, because maybe there's a different way of doing things. And like you said, it could be something internal that's happened with your body. It could be something external that's going on around you. Um, and one of the things that I found just when you started going through this pushback, and I don't think I can write right now. I don't think I can do the blog. Um, I started a totally different daily blog. And my blog now is about me touching base with how I'm feeling at the moment.
Mhm.
And um, right now, that's very, very helpful for me. You know, why, why am I um, having a second cup of coffee when it really doesn't taste good? Okay.
Mhm.
A lot of us do things, like you said, you started noticing that food tasted like cardboard. Okay. So why are we eating things that we don't like anymore? All right.
Mhm.
Maybe that's the time to say it's okay to go out and look for something new and different,
Mhm.
but not
I
just
actually, I actually did a cardboard um, experiment. I went out to Home Depot and bought some boxes, and then I got a box in the mail from FedEx, and I put them side by side and I tasted them, and it reminded me of that diet I was
yeah. I'm s- I love you. I love you.
on.
I was falling for that for a second. Um, but you, hey, it may have been a good experiment, because truthfully, if you had done that and it had tasted like the food, um, maybe that would have encouraged you, to change up your diet. I don't know.
Mhm.
Um, but those are the things that sometimes we have to shake ourselves up, and it's okay to. Uh, and, I'm not one for making resolutions, whether it's January 1st or any other time of the year. Um, when it feels right to make a change, that's when you make the change. And
Mhm.
you can't be forced into it. Uh,
Yeah.
Now, when you were diagnosed with your diabetes, let's go there for a second. Um, did you have any indication before you were actually diagnosed that you had a problem?
Um, no, but I did bring it on myself. It took me a few months to realize what I had done. Um, I was searching for a diet at the time,
Okay.
and we all know that we're frequently told that vegetables are good for us.
Right.
And in my silly little way of thinking, I thought, you know what? I really enjoy V8 juice.
Okay.
And therefore, I created a diet in my head that I would drink a lot of V8 juice instead of eating
Okay.
vegetables
Okay.
and things like that. Well, I was consuming massive amounts of V8 juice. You know, those big cans,
Yeah.
not the little ones that are the size of
Yeah.
a Coke, but the
Yeah.
giant cans.
Yeah.
I was drinking one a day.
And how much sugar content was in that?
Well, I didn't stop to think about it. I was just thinking vegetables.
Okay.
And I went into my doctor's office on a routine exam, and I started telling him that I was lightheaded, that this and that. And we had never considered looking for diabetes before. And while sitting in his office, he said, "Let me do this simple blood test." So he did one of those finger pricks that I do all the time now.
Right.
And he checked my blood, and my blood sugar level was around 580. Normal is around 100.
Yeah. Wow.
He had a panic look on his face, and the doctor that I go to, he's right around the corner from a hospital that he participates at. And he said, "Gary," he says, "I want you to go directly and admit yourself at emergency, and I'll look in on you." Well, at the time, I was going through some financial problems, and I went bare without health insurance for a period of 4 to 5 years, because I had felt I was relatively healthy and I wasn't getting insurance from another source, and I was paying cash $500 a month, and I was going without. So the thought of going into a hospital without insurance, I wasn't going to do that. And I wasn't feeling bad. I
Okay.
had this bad number. So I figured, okay, I'll go home and I'll lay off the sugar and my sugar number will come down. Well, I did not at that time. I did not go to the hospital. I went home and tried to, you know,
Correct.
reevaluate
Yep.
what I was consuming. Well, nothing terrible happened to me because of the number. And over the years, those people who are diabetic that are listening to this understand this. Um, when you have a high, you don't necessarily feel bad. The feel bad comes if you have a low. The lowest I can go without feeling bad is if my blood sugar might be 85 or 90. And there are times when my sugar is lower than that, when it's
Wow.
75 or 70. And when that happens, I sweat profusely and I become very shaky. So, the thing that's bad about the high blood sugar, even though I don't feel bad, it's wreaking havoc on my insides.
Right.
It's messing up my kidneys and my gallbladder and whatever else it attacks in me.
Right.
And while those things are becoming worse and worse, you don't necessarily feel it. There's no pain. There's nothing that I experience, anyways. And so that identified my diabetes. Now,
Interesting.
I might as well tell you this horror story about the diabetes. At the time, I told you just a minute ago that I had no insurance,
Right.
but I live in a senior community, and there are many people here who don't have the funds to have insurance.
Right.
They might, if they're over 62, they'll have Medicare, Medicaid, whatever. But at the time, I wasn't yet 62, but there was a medical bus that would come and park in a parking lot, and they were affiliated with the medical school at University of California.
Okay.
It was an amazing gift because you would go in there and you'd need an appointment to go in, but a complete physical with all of the things that go into it with all the lab work and everything was $45 cash.
Wow.
I can't imagine what it would cost if you went to pay cash
Right.
for that kind of care. And if you needed specific tests, they would send you to a clinic which they were affiliated with. Well, this was right after I learned that I was diabetic, and I asked, would you help me treat this? And they sent me to the clinic. And I had never used insulin before that. So this clinic was an amazing place too for people who were short on cash. Their fees were incredibly low. And in addition to the medical side, they had a dental clinic there as well.
Oh, terrific.
So I made 2 appointments that day because it was a fair distance from where I live. So I made the appointment with the nurse about diabetes, and I made an appointment with the dentist for a cleaning and a checkup. So I go in and have the nurse. She was really great. She explained what diabetes was. She explained the highs and the lows and what you needed to do to take care. They were providing me with the insulin for pennies, and I didn't have to have an insurance card but I would have to come back to their
Right.
clinic. So she asked me if I had ever injected myself. And I said, no. So she said, well, while you're here, let me teach you how to inject yourself. So she had a bunch of oranges on the table, and she took a syringe and she filled it with water, and she taught me how to inject myself. And then she said to me, before you go, why don't you just walk over to the pharmacy, get your insulin, come back here, and I'll watch you inject yourself for the first time. Great idea. Yeah.
Sure.
So I go to the pharmacy, I get the insulin, I come back, and she says to me that she'll fill the syringe and prepare it for me. So she fills the syringe and she says, here's the syringe, inject yourself, which I did. And there's an area right around your belly button where you don't feel any pain. You don't even
Okay.
feel the needle going in. And so that's where she had me do it. And normally I would have gotten up, said thank you, and gotten in my car and driven home. But I had this dental appointment just down the hallway, and it was starting like right now within 5 minutes. So I walk into the dental clinic and I sit down in the chair and I'm waiting for the hygienist to come and clean my teeth. And all of a sudden, I started fading away. My eyes were closing. I was totally sleepy. I couldn't speak without slurring. And I'm tipping over out of the chair. And the nurse comes in and she says, what's wrong? I said, it must be the insulin. And I'm sort of slurring that out. I can't even speak totally coherently. And I said, I got it down the hall. And all of a sudden, next thing I knew, the doctors were all rushing in and they checked my blood, and my blood was like 70 or 65.
Excuse
And so
Oh,
I'm having
wow.
a low, and I must have sweated out 5 pounds of water. My clothes were wringing wet. And the doctor said, oh my God, what happened here? So they started feeding me candy bars and
Oh,
sandwiches to bring my sugar up, the nurse misread the doctor's handwriting.
Ah.
She was supposed to give me 6 units of insulin, and she gave me 60 units of
Oh
insulin.
my God.
Had I gone to my car, I would have been in the middle of the 5 freeway dead by the time someone got to me.
Oh my God.
And, you know, with any cure, there are potential problems. And the fact that this nurse misread something, it seems to me nobody would take 60 units of insulin, but whatever. And I'm here to tell the story. So it worked out in the end. But I think I had to stay there in the dentist chair for almost 4 hours while they brought my sugar back to normal.
Wow. So now do you have to carry candy bars or things like that around with you?
There's these little sugar tablets. I have some in my car. I have some next to my bed. It's, uh, and I would assume it's like this for most diabetics. Um, Before I go to bed, I check my sugar and I give myself an injection. And there are many different kinds of insulin. The one I take before bedtime is like time released,
Okay.
but still, you see what your number is, and then you guesstimate how many units you should take. And last night, I took a normal number of units. And when I got up this morning and I checked my blood again, my number was close to 200, and it should have been down to 100. So you're like this chemist playing games. One of the things that makes me nuts, and it might just be me and my body, it's not the same for everyone. I might, let's say my number is 110, which is, I consider good, and I eat a pretzel, and then I check my sugar again. It might go up to 180 for one pretzel. And so you're trying to keep your number, let's say between 90 and 110, but you're fighting this losing battle because anytime you eat anything, it shoots your number up. And so before each meal, I take an injection of a different kind of insulin to counteract what I'm planning on eating.
So in today's world they have these insulin pumps. Do those
Yeah,
work any better?
I never investigated that, but it seems to me that would be more readily available to you, but it wouldn't necessarily make any difference of what the food
Does to you?
does to your body. And you don't know necessarily, well, you when you have your blood work done, they can check the capacity of your liver, of
Right.
your kidneys, of whatever. And it's not pleasant. Um, Nothing hurts. The worst part of it for me are the lows and the uncertainty of, am I giving myself the right number?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I would imagine that there are a lot of people out there going through the same experience. Maybe I need to join a group, but to sit and talk about this with other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can understand that. And the sad part is you know, with you being diabetic and my husband being diabetic, I'm more conscious of, looking at, sugar and carbs in foods. And I'm so surprised in our society today how much on the market is filled with sugars and carbs. I mean,
Oh,
it's hard to
absolutely.
find anything that's reduced. Um, and in one thing that, I use is no sugar, like coffee creamer. And
Mhm.
coffee creamers come in all these different flavors, and yet the sugar free, you can barely find it. And then it's always in the worst flavors as far as I'm concerned. But I don't understand when things can be made sugar free, why more things aren't, especially because we are such a overweight society and
Yeah,
prone to
but
diabetes.
the carbs turn into sugar.
Yeah.
So
y-
many things that are sugar free still have carbs in them.
Right.
And I'm I'm about to experiment with a new product. Um, it's I realize that I'm one of those people, and there are millions like me who see some promise on
Yep.
the internet. And you already know you've tried a bunch of things on the internet, and not necessarily all food, but even, oh, a laptop cushion to
Yeah.
hold your computer,
Right.
and you buy it because it's such a great price, and within 10 minutes it's broken, or that sort of thing. So there's this thing that's been advertised with the names of many um, celebrities, and it's um, a product that is from the weed family,
Okay. Okay.
and they're gummies, like
Okay.
gummy
Yep.
bears. And the promise is that this will eliminate the problems of diabetes. Well, it doesn't say if you have to eat one or two a day or if you eat a whole jar a day. And it probably isn't going to work, but I like gummy
Well,
bears.
hey.
So I put in an order through the internet, and who knows? Uh, we just keep trying different things, and something along the way, we hope it's going to work.
Right.
Um, I've had those experiences with Weight Watchers. The first time I tried it, I was in my 20s, and the people who led the meetings back then were celebrities. Uh, this one lady, I still remember her name. Joyce Lowenthal was her name, and it was in Michigan, in Oak Park, Michigan. She would have 200 people show up to her meeting. She was like an onstage comic, and she would talk about the things that you should avoid eating, the uh, wonderful creative recipes you could make with things. The one thing that I'll never forget, she talked about the value of eating liver, and that wasn't my favorite, except I did like chopped liver. But she talked about making a liver soda.
Oh,
Uh,
no.
just the thought of it
Oh,
was awful. And I was very successful in her class, as were many others. We wanted to be successful for her as much as for ourselves,
sure.
and it was a joy going to her meetings. And before each meeting, you weighed yourself in, and I wasn't battling a ton of weight at the time, but it was a good experience. In later years, my wife, Adrienne, worked for Weight Watchers for many years. So we had modified Weight Watchers food at home. And I wasn't really that successful in other times when I did the same Weight Watcher program. And so it's probably related to my headspace at the time. Yeah.
Well, we all go through these things, and it's very easy to have negative thoughts going through our heads, even though we're trying to be positive.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I know a lot of people just a week ago kept saying, "Oh, I can't wait till 2021 because things are going to change." Well, things don't change unless we change. Um,
Right.
and we can't expect others to change for us. Um, and so, we do the best that we can. And when it's something you want to do, you can be successful at it. So that's what we have to look for. What is it we really want to do?
Well, take a look at today's blog that I'll be posting sometime after 4 o'clock California time.
Okay.
It's basically about this same idea related to Scrabble and to words. And it's with an invitation for people to participate in my class. But it also says in there, um, it may not be the right time for you. Think about whether you have the commitment to do the work, because it's not a magic, uh, you know, item that we do. It's not the silver bullet. Whatever our choice is on any of these, it requires our commitment and our follow through. And if you commit and follow through related to the words, I guarantee your success. And the same thing is true whether it's a diet or working out or whatever. When you're really into it and when your commitment is there, you will be successful. And so take a look to it. I leave my number in the blog. And if someone wants to get going, there are no lines, and you don't have to stand in line like getting a shot or getting a
COVID.
food
Yep.
handout. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. If
That
you
sounds
call me today, we'll start this evening or tomorrow morning.
that sounds wonderful. Well, I'm glad that you're back in the saddle again, and
Mhm.
we will do another show this coming week. And we look forward to your blogs and make it a positive 2021.
Yep.
Have a great
Happy
day.
New Year. Bye
Happy New
bye.
Year. Bye bye.